Hello, Douse. Hello, those who are here. Let's see. So we have a couple people who are not in the chat, so welcome. We'll give it a minute or two, and we'll get started. Hello, Michael. Welcome. Hello, Elaine. Welcome. Hello, Bella and Gautam. Welcome. All right. So let's do our chanting. Maggasekha chanting book. We're gonna do a chant from Abhayagiri tonight. Did you know that the Maggasekha chanting book has chants from Abhayagiri in it? Yeah. Has a bunch of different things all compiled together for our community to use. So we're going to do page 269 and 270. Verses on the three characteristics. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Handamayangti lakkanadi gattayo bharnamase. Sabbe sankara anicchati yada panyaya passati yatta nibindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. Impermanent are all conditioned things. When with wisdom this is seen, one feels wary of all dukkha. This is the path to purity. Sabbe sankara dukkati yada panyaya passati yatta nibindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. Dukkha are all conditioned things. When with wisdom this is seen, one feels wary of all dukkha. This is the path to purity. Sabbe Dhamma anattati yadha panyaya passati atta nibindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. There is no self in anything. When with wisdom this is seen, one feels wary of all dukkha. This is the path to purity. Apakkate manuse suye jana paramagga paragamino attaya ittara pajjati rang eva nuddhavati. Few amongst humankind are those who go beyond. Yet there are many folk who ever wandering on this shore. Ye chako sammadakate dhamme dhammanuvattino te janna parang esanti machudeyang suddhattarang. Wherever Dhamma is well taught, those who train in line with it are the ones who will cross over the realm of death so hard to flee. Kanhang dhammang vappahaya sukkang bhaveta pandito oka anokang agamma viveke yatta doramang tatra bhiratinang ichaya hitva kame yakinchano. Abandoning the darker states, the wise pursue the bright. From the flood's dry land, they reach living withdrawn so hard to do. Such rare delight one should desire, sense pleasures cast away, not having anything. All right, friends. So, welcome to Dhammapalooza. This is going to be a different Dhammapalooza than usual because we're going to cut this short. We're not going to have a full 2 hours for a variety of reasons. So, what's going on now is that I'm in an area of the country that is, I guess it's Omicron, right? COVID is becoming very prevalent. So, I just found out this weekend that where I was going to go, the Indonesian family in New York City, they are having a COVID thing, and even Tan Santi, who's the monk there I was going to stay with, he feels that he has COVID, so he's quarantining. And then my sister and my brother-in-law just tested positive for COVID today, where I'm staying at. So we are also quarantining, and most likely we'll see if I get COVID or not. I think by this point I probably will. Um, and so because I'm here in this place and there's little kids and everything's kind of wide open, I'm not going to go too late because I don't want to. I don't want to have these kids get up and bother my sister and stuff like that. So we'll do Dhammapalooza maybe for about an hour and a half. I am feeling a bit tired today too. We're just moving into this brand new house, and it is quite dusty and things like that. And I'm very kind of sensitive to things like smoke, which is one thing that I dealt with a lot, over when I was with at Dhamma the hermitage or Anya Bodhi, and we were always dealing with smoke from fires coming in, and I was very sensitive to that. So I'm very kind of sensitive to things like smoke and dust and mold and pollen and things like that. And so I've been a little under the weather for that regard. And now maybe it's COVID too. Who knows? I don't know. But but I don't tend to do well ingesting all kinds of particulates one way or the other. So I'm feeling a bit tired. We'll just do Dhammapalooza for a little bit, for an hour or so, and then we'll get started. And then we'll call it. And hopefully next week, we'll see. This seems to, I'm suspecting this is probably the Omicron variant, and this usually is pretty light and goes quick. So hopefully maybe by next Monday, I'll be there in New York City, and we can do Dhammapalooza with Tan Santi. We'll see how things go. Everything is uncertain as always, right? We never know. It's a good lesson. You just never know. You could be just going about your life, and then you're driving and you get killed in a car accident, right? Or an asteroid comes down and takes you out. You don't know. This is the uncertainty of life. So let's do. If there's anybody brand new, for now, I'll introduce Dhammapalooza as our festival of Dhamma. We did some chanting, and we'll see what the next hour will bring us. What I like to do is give you guys this time now to have a say in how this is going to go. So if you have any topics you'd like me to discuss or the community to discuss, if you have any questions you'd like me to take a shot at, then you can type those in the chat. Otherwise, I have a sutta for us to read as well, and we can read suttas. So let's see what you guys think about the chat. I assume I'm coming in fine audio-wise and everything. It's the same setup that I always have, the same gear, as it were, just a different location. So. But this is the first Dhammapalooza of 2022. Dhammapalooza started April of 2020. Right, so we're coming up on almost 2 years. 2 years of Dhammapalooza. From the 8 precepts. So I looked up, I remember a couple years ago, I looked up the whole high seats and beds thing. This is not talking about height, right? This is not talking about, like such and such from the ground. This is talking about the fanciness, right? That's what this is talking about, right? So it's so basically the precept is like sleeping in more, more humble bedding. If you have some big fancy Tempur-Pedic bed, maybe for the night you can sleep in, sleep on a rollout mattress or a couch or an air bed or something. I don't know, but that's what that means. Um, well, I still feel I haven't lost my feeling. Okay, feel better. Uh, well, I don't feel bad right now. I'm just a little tired. Helping my sisters, move in and everything. Lots of particulates and dust and things. That's just the way it goes. Actually, Michael, this is 100% correct. I actually, because I have breathing issues my whole life, allergies, like even to this day, I very rarely am able to have a full breath like whenever I want it. Like there's always a cut, right? And so when I decided to just sleep on like a camping mat that has like a little, like whatever, like an inch of like foam or something like that, all of a sudden I can breathe. Like so I actually prefer almost no beds. Like what now that I travel around, most people have these big thick beds, right? The one that I'm sleeping on here is actually quite thick, but thankfully it's very firm, or else it would be really bad for me. All right, so there is something to sleeping on less cushioning, right? There's there's also something. It's interesting because when I was a layperson, I was a barefoot runner, right? And you see all these kind of studies of how people actually like having these heavily cushioned shoes actually harm, like because people are pounding the pavement and things like that. Um, and so like there is definitely something I think to not having so much cushioning. We don't really need it either, to be honest with you. Especially if you're like sagging, if you're sagging in, like how are you going to breathe well? I mean, again, I've had breathing issues my whole life, so I guess it's more noticeable for me. Many things are. So if you're like kind of sagging in, you know, it's it's not easy. So I actually do prefer to sleep on. When during this Vasa, I spent the 3 months in the tent, right? And I slept on, which is basically an air mattress, a camping air mattress. Is about this thick, and that was enough. I mean, I almost always sleep on my side because I can't breathe sleeping on my back, unless I'm like really propped up. Like if I have one of those wedges and some pillows, and I'm like almost like this, then I can sleep on my back. But otherwise, I sleep on my side so I can breathe better. So let's see. So the words here, right? The Pali words, maha, great, big, grand, maha, right? That's where we get mahasatipatthana, Mogalana, right? So the word here is maha, great, big, grand, right? And the other Pali word here is ucca. Now let me look here. Let me break up the digital, get out the digital Pali reader. And let's see what ucca says for the dictionary. High and noble, right? So high, noble. So we're talking. Well, I guess this one does say also could be raised. So I guess it also would make sense, again, that the average person is probably sleeping on like a little thing of hay, right? But royalty will sleep on big, big beds. Maybe high off the ground, wide beds, kinds of things like that. So, well, I guess that's the one question. Do we have any other questions or topics to discuss? If not, we can read Majjhima Nikaya number 19. Okay, so let's read the sutta then. I was going through the Majjhima Nikaya, seeing which sutta I'd like to read, and the old classic came up, so might as well go through this. Dvedavataka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 19. Two kinds of thought. Most of you, if you've heard me teach long enough, you've heard me talk about this thing a million times. And that's because it's worth talking about a million times. Very important sutta that gives practical technique on how to work with your mind. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Buddha said this, Mendicants, before my awakening, when I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening, I thought, why don't I meditate by continually dividing my thoughts into two classes? So I assign sensual, malicious, and cruel thoughts to one class. So this is important. This translation is a bit too. It's a bit too much. It's too quick, right? So we're talking about here. This is the same three words we see in the Noble Eightfold Path, Samma Sankappo, right? No, right intention, right thought, right? So this would be Mitya Sankappo, right? And so the words here, interesting. Okay, that's the obvious. Okay, yeah. So this is, so kama, which is sensual pleasures, vyapada, which is right malevolent. So like that's the opposite of metta, as we're going to see, or goodwill, and vihingsa, which is the opposite of avihingsa. Right, vihingsa is malign, like to wish to harm. Right, so we split our thoughts into one side there, and I assign thoughts of renunciation, nekama, goodwill, abhyapada, and harmlessness, avihingsa, to the second class. Then as I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, a second thought arose. I understood. A sensual thought arose. I understood this sensual thought has arisen in me. It leads to hurting myself, hurting others, and hurting both. It blocks wisdom. It's on the other side of anguish. This is also the first time I'm reading this. I know this. I don't want to say word by word, but close enough because I've read this so much. I know this almost word by word in the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation, but I've never yet read this in Bhante Sujato's translation. This was another reason I wanted to read this. And it's quite different. It's going to take me a little bit getting used to. It blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and it doesn't lead to extinguishment. When I reflected that it leads to hurting myself, it went away. So this is very important. Right? Notice that the Buddha had these thoughts arise. He didn't try to push them away. He didn't try to crush mind with mind. Right? He didn't do any of that. He simply understood, reflected that these thoughts lead to my harm, the harm of others, and the harm of both. And when I reflected on that, it went away. Right? And this is very common. This is, for most thoughts, this is actually what happens. Again, you've heard me talk about this a million times again, where this is where, we see in the Tara and the Tarigata where these elder bhikkhus and bhikkhunis are meditating and Mara comes and, tempts them and speaks to them. Why are you doing this? Why don't you enjoy sensual pleasures? And they say, I see you, Mara. And Mara goes away dejected, right? Now, what they don't show is that Mara comes back a little bit later, but at a different angle, right? First, Mara comes in this way and to try to justify you, engaging in all kinds of sensual pleasures or bad activities, right? And then you see them and he goes away, but then he flanks around and he comes back over here with another justification, right? To try to get you to say, and I've seen this with myself. I've caught Mara here and I've caught Mara here and I've caught Mara here. And then Mara comes in from here. And I was like, actually, yeah, that's a good justification. Right? But Mara got me. Right? So you have to be careful with that. So this is what happens. But if you can win the battle, right? You can say, no, this leads to harm. Right? And then it goes away. Now, the next sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 20, is for when it doesn't go away. That's removal of distracting thoughts. But we're not going to worry about that right now. So, when I reflected that it leads to hurting myself, it went away. When I reflected that it leads to hurting others, it went away. When I reflected that it leads to hurting both, it went away. When I reflected that it blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and doesn't lead to extinguishment, and went away. So I gave up, got rid of, and eliminated any sensual thoughts that arose. Then, as I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, a malicious thought arose, a cruel thought arose. I understood this cruel thought has arisen in me. It leads to hurting myself, hurting others, and hurting both. It blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and doesn't lead to extinguishment. When I reflected that it leads to hurting myself, hurting others, hurting both, it went away. When I reflected that it blocks wisdom, it's on the side of anguish, and it doesn't lead to extinguishment, it went away. So I gave up, got rid of, and eliminated any cruel thoughts that arose. So right here, the Buddha is telling us this is how to work with this, right? So first you have to recognize that this thought is harmful, that this thought is going to be harmful to yourself and others. And when you recognize that and you acknowledge that and you let it go, you abandon it, right? This is not again, a forceful thing. This is, however, remember, if in my guided meditations, when I talk about acknowledge, let go, and return. And by letting go, we mean not that we get angry and push it away, nor that we get it, attached to it and want to think about it more and more. We simply give it no energy. We let it go. That's what's meant by letting go and abandoning here. It's not pushing it away. It's literally saying, this is simply a thought that has arisen. I'm not going to give it any energy. I'm not going to, I'm not going to pursue this thought. I'm not going to prop it up, build it, right? I'm just going to let it be. And you'll see when you're able to do that, things will arise. They'll come through your mind like a stream, and then they'll cease. And then something else will come, right? So this is really what's going on here in this, that the Buddha is saying that, because what happens is if you're trying to calm your mind, right? If you're trying to build a tranquil mind, going like this and trying to force things out and trying to use will, that's going to make the mind more agitated. That's going to make the mind, more busy, more likely for distractions to arise. That's not how that works. And so here the Buddha says it comes into a very important part. Whatever a mendicant frequently thinks about and considers becomes their heart's inclination. Don't like this translation. So basically what this is saying is whatever a person thinks about and ponders and makes a habit of, this becomes the inclination of their mind, right? Because here it's chitta, right? This is a Thai forest thing, translating the chitta as the heart, right? So basically this is, if maybe you went to school and you see what we think, what we become and things like that, right? The Buddha was the first one. The Buddha was the first person to do this. The Buddha is basically saying very clearly, whatever you ponder upon, whatever you think about a lot, that becomes the habit, the inclination of the mind, right? So, and now he says, if they often think about and consider sensual thoughts, they've given up the thought of renunciation to cultivate sensual thought. Their mind inclines towards sensual thought. So, are you going to allow your mind to focus more towards the sensual thought, grasping, clinging, or are you going to allow your mind to go towards letting go, abandoning, right? Now, when you become a Dhamma practitioner, you've already spent many lifetimes and maybe many, many years in this lifetime inclining towards grasping, clinging. So letting go is going to be the hard thing. Letting go is what's not going to be a habit. So you have to build that habit up slowly over time. If they often think about and consider malicious thoughts, cruel thoughts, their mind inclines towards malicious and cruel thoughts. Hello, Christine. Welcome. Suppose it's the last month of the rainy season, when the crops grow closely together, and the cowherd must take care of the cattle. He'd tap and poke them with his staff on his side, and that to keep them in check. On this side, and that to keep them in check. Why is that? For he sees that if they wander into the crops, he could be executed. Oh boy, that was a tough punishment back then, huh? So if those crops are destroyed, I suppose if there's issues with famine, that makes sense, doesn't it? In the same way, I saw in unskillful qualities having the drawbacks of sordidness and corruption. And that skillful qualities have become the benefit and the cleansing power of renunciation. Then, as I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, a thought of renunciation arose in me. So we started out with the miccha, sankapo, the wrong, unskillful thoughts. And now we are coming to Samma Sankappo, right thoughts. This thought of renunciation has arisen in me. It doesn't lead to hurting myself, hurting others, or hurting both. How do you know, Reed? It nourishes wisdom, it's on the side of freedom from anguish, and it leads to extinguishment. If I were to keep thinking and considering this all night and all day, and all night and all day, I see no harm, no danger that would come of that. So the Buddha is now seeing that this is a skillful thought, and no harm would come from this thought, right? No harm can come from this thought, at least intentionally. You could still have a good intention and do something and harm comes from it, but intentionally, no harm was intended there. Still, thinking and considering for too long would tire my body. And when the body is tired, the mind is stressed. Here, see? Very good. And when the mind is stressed, it's far from immersion, from samadhi. Hello, Jose. Welcome. Good to see you, my friend. So I stilled, settled, unified, and immersed my mind internally. Why is that? So that my mind would not be stressed. Then, as I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, a thought of goodwill arose. A thought of harmlessness arose. I understood this thought of harmlessness has arisen in me. It doesn't lead to hurting myself, hurting others, or hurting both. It nourishes wisdom. It's on the side of freedom from anguish, and it leads to extinguishment. If I were to keep on thinking and considering this all night, all day, all night and all day, I see no danger that would come from that. Still, thinking and considering for too long would tire my body. And when the body is tired, the mind is stressed. And when the mind is stressed, it's far from immersion. So I stilled, settled, unified, and immersed my body internally. Why is that? So that my mind would not be stressed. Whatever a mendicant frequently thinks out about and considers becomes the heart's inclination. If they often think about and consider thoughts of renunciation, they've given up sensual thought to cultivate the thought of renunciation. Their mind inclines towards thoughts of renunciation. If they often think about and consider thoughts of goodwill, their mind inclines towards thoughts of goodwill. If they often think about and consider thoughts of harmlessness, their mind inclines to thoughts of harmlessness. That's what the Noble Eightfold Path. This is right effort to develop right intention, right thought. That's what this is. Right? This sutta is right effort to develop right thought. Putting in effort to develop the habit of building up and thinking more thoughts of letting go, thoughts of goodwill, thoughts of harmlessness, and not feeding. Ahara is the word that the Buddha uses. You know this word from when we talk about the 5 hindrances. So not feeding the unskillful thoughts, not feeding the thoughts that lead to harm, right? Build up, develop the habit for the good, abandon the unskillful. This is right effort to develop right thought. Suppose it's the last month of summer. Now we have a very skillful cowherd here. When all the crops have been gathered within the village, and a cowherd must take care of the cattle. While at the root of a tree in the open, he need only be mindful that the cattle are there. There's no danger, right? So there's the danger of getting killed, because if you don't pay attention, if you're not mindful, right, those cattle are going to trample the plants. But now the plants are all harvested. They can do whatever. As a matter of fact, they can go in the fields because they poop on the fields and they give fertilizer to the fields, right? So it's like, yeah, sure, let the cattle go now, no problem. All right. In the same way, I needed only to be mindful that those things were there. My energy was roused up and unflagging. My mindfulness was established and lucid. My body was tranquil and undisturbed. And my mind was immersed in samadhi. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, I entered and remained in the first absorption, first jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. As the placing of the mind and keeping it connected were stilled, I entered and remained in the second jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of immersion, with internal clarity and confidence, and unified mind, without placing the mind and keeping it connected. And so now we're going into jhana. And with the fading away of rapture, I entered and remained in the third jhana. Oh, wait, we already did go into jhana. Duh. You can tell I'm a little off, huh? So we're gonna end this probably about at an hour. I'm kind of feeling that I'm not going to be good for much longer than that. And with the fading away of rapture, I entered and remained in the third jhana, where I meditated with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss of which the noble ones declare, equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. With the giving up of pleasure and pain, with the ending of former happiness and sadness, I entered upon and remained in the fourth jhana, without pleasure or pain, with pure equanimity and mindfulness. When my mind had immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, I extended it towards the recollection of past lives. No all-night Dhammapalooza for now, Adriana. Maybe in a posita coming soon, but not now. Not now. All right. So this is an example of how we use the jhana, especially the fourth jhana, because in the fourth jhana, there's no greed and hatred. There's no likes and dislikes. There's no pleasure and pain. There's just mindfulness and equanimity. This is why it's like normally every day you have these glasses and they're like fogged over and you can barely see things, right? But then all of a sudden you have new pair of glasses that are crystal clear 4K, right? And then you can see, well, I didn't see all these things before. I didn't see anicca, dukkha, and anatta. I didn't see, these things, right? Because when you have the clear glasses, when you have the ability to see things without all the gunk in the way, then you can use that like a lighthouse. You can say, okay, anicca, dukkha, anatta, right? 3 characteristics of existence. You can see clearly all things are unstable, undependable. All things are, when clung to, are suffering, right? All things are not self. You can see that very clearly, right? So you can also put your mind, right, towards the recollection of past lives. I recollected many kinds of past lives with features and details. This was the first knowledge which I achieved in the first watch of the night. So now we're going over, this is the Buddha's awakening thing, right? Going into jhanas, going very deep, and seeing this. All right. This was the first knowledge which I achieved in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was destroyed and knowledge arose. Darkness was destroyed and light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. When my mind had become immersed in samadhi like this, I extended it towards the knowledge of the death and rebirth of sentient beings. With clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, I saw sentient beings passing away and being reborn, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good place and a bad place. I understood how sentient beings are reborn according to their deeds. This was the second knowledge which I achieved in the middle watch of the night. Ignorance was destroyed and knowledge arose. Darkness was destroyed and light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. When my mind had become immersed in samadhi like this, I extended it towards the knowledge of the ending of the defilements. I truly understood this is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. And this is the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. I truly understood these are the defilements. This is the origin of the defilements. This is the cessation of the defilements. This is the practice that leads to the cessation of the defilements. Knowing and seeing this, my mind was freed from the defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. I understood. This is perhaps one of my favorite lines in all of the suttas. It's called the victory cry of the Arahants, right? This was like at the time of the Buddha, when you went to proclaim your victory to the other bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, you say this: Kina jati, rebirth is ended. Vusatang brahmacharyang, the spiritual journey, the spiritual life, the holy life has been completed, has been led. Katang karaniyam, done is what had to be done. Na parang ittatayati pajanati. There is no return to any state of existence. This was the third knowledge which I achieved in the last watch of the night. Ignorance was destroyed and knowledge arose. Darkness was destroyed and light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. Suppose that in a forested wilderness there was an expanse of low-lying marshes, and a large herd of deer lived nearby. Then along comes a person who wants to harm, injure, and threaten them. They close off the safe, secure path that leads to happiness and open the wrong path. There they plant domesticated male and female deer as decoys, so that in due course that herd of deer would fall into ruin and disaster. Then along comes a person who wants to help keep the herd of deer safe. They open up the safe, secure path that leads to happiness and close off the wrong path. They get rid of the decoys, so that in due course that herd of deer would grow, increase, and mature. I've made this simple simile to make a point, and this is what it means. An expanse of low-lying marshes is the term for sensual pleasures. A large herd of deer is the term for sentient beings. A person who wants to harm and injure and threaten them is the term for Mara, the wicked. The wrong path is the term for the wrong eightfold path. That is, wrong view, wrong thought, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, wrong samadhi. A domesticated male deer is a term for greed and relishing. Domesticating female deer is the term for ignorance. A person who wants to help keep the herd of deer safe is the term for realized one, the perfected one, the fully awakened Buddha. The safe, secure path that leads to happiness is a term for the Noble Eightfold Path. That is, right view, right thought, right speech, right intention, a right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. So, mendicants, I have opened up the safe, secure path to happiness and to close off the wrong path. And I have got rid of the male and female decoys. Out of compassion, I've done what a teacher should do for who wants for the best for their disciples. Here are the roots of trees. Here are the empty huts. Practice absorption. Mendicants, don't be negligent. Don't regret later. This is my instruction to you. This is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants were happy with what the Buddha said. All right, friends. So I'll leave it up to you guys if you have any things you want to clarify or any questions or something like that. And if there's nothing, then I'm probably going to call it a night. It'll be close to an hour. My other issue is that I had only a few hours of sleep last night because I had lots of energy, probably from candy, probably from chocolate. I think that I might have gotten had a little chocolate with my niece and nephew a little too late, but that's okay. So I was up late last night. All right. So between possible COVID, lots of dust, and little bit of a sleep, this is the condition I am in today. Such is the way for one who is born. This is how it goes. I don't feel bad. I just feel pretty tired. We'll see how I go. We'll see if we'll see, my next session for the week is Thursday, right? On Second Life. And we'll see how I feel by Thursday. So if I'm good, then we'll do Second Life on Thursday. If not, we'll hold off and we'll do Dhammapalooza next week. Michael, I'm very glad that you've had benefit here and you've become part of our Maggasekha community coming together for Dhammapalooza. Well, Adriana, you know who's talking in my mind. You know who's saying something in my mind right now, don't you? Who's saying something? Adriana knows. I have a wise master giving me wise advice in my mind. Yes, I'll either get better or I'll die. You can't go wrong with Ajahn Chah. I love it. Oh, that's great. Now, if you read his autobiography, you see that actually, like when one of his monks was sick and things like that, he'd actually take care of the monk. So, like that one time, you kind of like if you only know Ajahn Chah from that one statement, you think like Ajahn Chah's like this mean monk, but no, that was straight Dhamma. You'll get better or you'll die. See you later. I love it. All right. No, Bella and Gautam, no, there's not going to be any, while I'm here, there's not going to be any morning monastery experience. It's just the location and the time, it doesn't work out. So morning monastery experience, hopefully we'll start up again next week. Michael, that's Bhante Sujato down in Australia. So if you look up read suttas at Sutta Central .net, which is where we read the translation I read today, that was Bhante Sujato's, yeah. And other things like what the hell, Ananda? What the hell? And various other enjoyable translations that we have enjoyed for the last couple of years. Right, Adriana? All right. let's see, let's do our sharing of merits. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha amehi, sampadang punya sampadang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhiya, akasata chabumata, deva naga mahiddhika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share in this merit that we've thus acquired, for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends. So I guess we will call it a night. So keep an eye out for on my website or on the Discord to see if Thursday's up. We'll see. I'll keep you guys, abreast of my condition and such like that, and we'll see where it goes. And if I die, then I'll have my then I'll have one of my sisters post on there and tell you guys that. All right. Good night. Suki Hotu, may you be happy, practice well, and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful week. Well, Douse, we'll know something happened to you because you won't be around anymore. This is why myself and Reed and Adriana and Shab, we worry about Shay because we don't know what happened to Shay. Those of you who've been around the Discord for a long time, you know who Shay is. She was one of the the original three amigos. You have Reed, Adriana, and Shay, the three amigo mods, and Shay just disappeared. We haven't heard from her for almost a year now, 7-8 months. So it happens, right? I've been on the internet for over 20 years, and I've had people I knew very well for a long time just disappear, and I never had contact with them again. So Douse, if you disappear and we never have contact for you again, we will wish you either a good rebirth or a good rest of your life if you're still alive. One or the other. Okay, friends. Have a good night.